Hello and welcome back. Today we begin Chapter 5, from Chaucer to Spenser and the Early Tudor Period. Now, this was a time when poets were constantly experimenting with rhyme schemes, with prosody, and with meter. And these experiments laid the foundation for what would later become the golden age of English poetry. We have already explored these technical aspects in greater detail in our language and linguistics section, but here I want to give you a short refresher so that you can connect the history with the form. Poetic rhythm is built on metrical feet, and in this period poets were not afraid to test different patterns. The most familiar is the iamb, where an unstressed syllable is followed by a stressed one, giving us that natural heartbeat rhythm. Its opposite is the trochee, which reverses the pattern with stress at the beginning. We also see the dactyl, which is one stressed syllable followed by two unstressed, and the anapaist, which is the reverse, two unstressed followed by a stressed syllable. Occasionally poets use the spondy, where both syllables are stressed, or the pyrrhic, where both are unstressed. And in some lines you may notice the amphibrach, where the stress falls in the middle and the syllables on either side remain light. From these feet, whole poetic lines were crafted. One of the most important is the alexandrine, a 12-syllable line common in French verse that would later influence English poets. Far more central, though, is the iambic pentameter, with its steady 10-syllable rhythm across 5 iambs. Closely related is the decasyllable, which simply means any line of 10 syllables, and often overlaps with iambic pentameter. In contrast, the octosyllabic line 8 syllables long was widely used in medieval romances, while the tetrameter with its 4 beats per line gave a lighter sing-song effect. And perhaps most significant for English poetry is the heroic couplet, 2 rhymed lines of iambic pentameter, which became a hallmark of both Chaucer's narrative poetry and later poets such as Dryden and Pope. But form was not only about rhythm. This was also the age of allegory, where stories carried hidden moral or spiritual meanings beneath their surface plots. Allegory would become a defining mode from Chaucer's dream visions right through to Spenser's Fairy Queen. And tying all of this together is prosody, the study of versification, which began to take shape as poets and critics tried to describe, measure, and regulate the patterns of English verse. Alright, let's make this fun and super easy to remember. When we talk about metrical feet, we are really talking about patterns of stressed and unstressed syllables. To make it visual, let's use a code. A small o or underscore will mean unstressed. A capital O or double underscore will mean stressed. So here's the beat. Iamb or iambit is unstressed followed by stressed. So your code should be something like this: small o, capital O, or one underscore, double underscore. Say it like a rising heartbeat. Dadam. Trochee or trochaic is the reverse, stressed followed by unstressed. Your code should be like this: capita O, small o, or double underscore or single underscore. Sound it out as dum-da. Dactyl or dactylic is one stressed followed by two unstressed. Code: capital O and two small o, or double underscore and two single underscore. Think of it as dum-da-da. Next, anapaist or anapestic is two unstressed followed by one stressed. Now it's your turn. Write in the comment below. Next, we have spondy or double stress. Write in the comment below. Now let's do the same with pyrrhic is double unstress. Write in the comment below. Amphibrach is stress in the middle. Hear it as da dum da. Now let me tell you a rhythm trick. Now listen carefully. If you tap it out on the table while saying the code, it sticks. Tap soft, tap strong. Trochee, tap strong, tap soft. Dactyl, tap strong, tap soft, tap soft. Anapaist, tap soft, tap soft, tap strong. That's your metrical feet song. Once you've got this rhythm, spotting meters in poetry becomes second nature. So as we move through Chaucer, Lydgate, Skelton, Wyatt and Spenser in this chapter, keep in mind that these technical experiments were not just about style, they were part of a larger transformation in English poetry, shaping the very language and forms that would define the Renaissance.